welcome back to A Town Called Yarn, obviously not a real town. My name is Harrison and this is my podcast where I like to talk about knitting and crochet and maybe today a special bonus third craft. Who knows? Well, I know. You'll find out. And this is episode 17. This is my first one of these in the new year, so happy new year to everyone. Hope you had a good festive break, Christmas, New Year's, that kind of time. I had a really good Christmas. I then got quite ill after Christmas. I came down with this like flu-y, coldy, cough, chest infection thing that then kind of wiped me out for a little bit, for a good few days. And I've still got like a remnants of it. I kind of feel fine, I don't feel well anymore, but I'm like aware that I was ill recently, if that makes sense. And that's kind of all that's happened so far at the start of this year, which sounds like a not great start to the year, but I'm fine with it. Back at work this week, first 5-day week of the year. It's been a bit of a slog, but I survived. I'm very brave. I filmed this on Friday, but you'll see this on Sunday, so by then I'll have had most of my weekend, so I'll hopefully have recovered. And I think that's everything that I have to catch up on in terms of me, in terms of life. Is there anything else? No, so let's jump in to, like I said, so this is a kind of normal podcast. One thing I need to remember to say at the start, because I always forget about it, is everything I talk about will be written down in the description down below. So all of the projects I talk about, the yarn, any project bags, all of that kind of information is down there. So if you are interested in anything or want to click on a link to a website or to Ravelry or anything, that's all linked down below. Today I'm just looking up at my notes, I'm just staring into the distance. I have 2 finished objects, which is unheard of for me. I have 5 whips, one of them not knitting and crochet. Hopefully you're buzzed about that. I then have some plans that I want to talk about in terms of specifically about some of the advents and the projects that I want to work on with those advents. And then I've also had a little bit of yarn arrive, and I'll talk to you about why I bought that, because I definitely said on my last one of these that I wasn't going to buy as much yarn this year, and I'm sat here looking at some yarn I bought. But it's not that much yarn, and I bought it very specifically for a project, but I'll talk about that later. Let's crack on with finished objects. So my first finished object is my Litmus Cowl, which I finally finished. So if you watched my Advent video, which came out just after Christmas, and if you did, well done you, because it ended up being like 3.5 hours long. And as I was editing it, as I got further and further through it and I saw the time go up, I was just thinking, who's going to watch this? It's so long. But then some of you did and some of you enjoyed it. So if you did, very grateful for that. If you watched that, you'll have seen me working on this, but because I got ill, I didn't end up finishing it before I posted that video. So I finished it since. So like I said, this is the Litmus Cowl by Jude Harper. It's a free pattern, and in reality, it's a cowl knit as a tube and then seamed together. And this is using the Skein and the Stitch Advent in Wonderland, which was based on Alice in Wonderland. So if I do that, you can see all the colours working through. It was a fade, or kind of a slow, no, it was a fade, but not one of those where every colour you kind of don't see the difference. You could kind of see the difference between every colour. And I'm really, really happy with this. I managed to finish it. I kept up for most of Advent. I lost steam. It was when I started going back to the office that I kind of lost track of it a bit. But I finished this, I think, on like the 29th of December. So that's only 5 days late. I'm not mad at that at all. A couple of things. You might notice that there's a bit of a twist in the Advent. This was not intentional. If I'm honest, by the time I got to the end of this, I just really wanted to seam it together, and I can't actually tell, I don't know where the seam is, I can't remember. There it is. And I must just not have, I know that the first stitch that I seamed together was the same first stitch. I just think maybe somewhere around something must have slightly twisted. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. I also made a bit of a mistake in that when I finished the last, so this red colour here is the last colour. When I finished this main colour stripe, I finished it and cut it off. And then I remembered I needed to seam it together, which meant I had no yarn attached to the project to seam it together with. It became quite stressful because I tried like doing magic knots to try and add on a new bit of yarn, but that didn't work. In the end, what I did was I cut a really long extra bit of yarn on. I've used that to sew it together, and I've just really tightly woven in the ends, and I'm kind of hoping for the best. You can see kind of there that the start of the seam's not necessarily perfect, but it is what it is. I'm happy with this overall. I like the size of it, and luckily, even though it's not, the seam's not perfect, it's one of those things that once it's on, if anyone's able to see the seam, then like get away from me, you know. And I really like it. I really like the way it looks. I like how many colours are in it, so you can kind of change up which colours are more prominent based on how you kind of wrap it around. So I think it's a really great pattern. I used about, so this is my leftover from the advent. I used about 8 grams of each colour, I think. Maybe a little bit more. Might have varied slightly depending on my tension throughout it. So I have a lot of the advent left here, which is fun because it means I can do like a whole second project with this advent. Although there is a bit of me, I think I'll decide later in the year, there is a bit of me that thinks if I don't end up using this, what I might end up doing is kind of re-wrapping it up and giving it to my mum next year as an advent. So she can have a little yarn advent and make something for herself with it. But we'll see. I might end up using it for myself. Or I might end up knitting something with it to give to my mum, maybe. Because I think she'd really love all these colours. I really like Skein and the Stitches colourways, and this was no different. I knit this on 3.5mm circular needles, which is what the pattern calls for. I did cast on a few more stitches than the pattern called for. It called for a cast on 100. I found that just felt like it was a little bit tight going around my 16-inch circulars. So I cast on probably 20 extra, maybe 30 extra, so it is wider than the original pattern, but not in a way that I think anyone's mad about, because it's, like I said, it's a tube. But that is my Litmus Cowl. I'm really, really happy with that, and that's, yeah, this counts as my last finished project of 2024, so what a time to be alive. So that's finished object number 1. Finished object number 2 is a project that I was working on for a lot longer than December. And this is my granny wrap. You can't see it all on camera, but you can kind of, you get the vibe. Let me move back a little bit. Can you see more of it there? Maybe. I don't know if that was a weird angle. But this is the Granny Wrap by Anaboos House. It's a free pattern. You'll have probably seen a few people do it. It's a really, really simple granny square triangle. Granny stitch triangle. Granny square triangle doesn't make sense. And I crocheted this using the Secret Treasure Box Blanket Club by Green Lambkin Yarn, which was their 2024 Blanket Club. So each month I got 4 20-gram DK minis, and I just added them in as we went. And I used all of them up. The only colourway that I didn't use all of was the final one. And that's just because when I got to the end, I knew I wouldn't have enough to do a full round. So there's less of this final colour. Actually, I should show you the final 4 colours because you've not seen them. I think you can see them there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. So there's the final 4 colours. So you've got this light kind of pale pink with some pops of hotter pink. You've got this turquoisey with blues running through it. You've got this kind of, the one with the more purples and pinks in it, and then you've got this softer one that had, you can't really see, I don't think. They kind of, I think the thing with this pattern with using minis is that by the time you got to the size that I'm doing, is you kind of can't see any one colourway loads, which I can't work out how I feel about. I can't work out whether I'd have rather used more than 20 gram minis on it. But I'm also really happy with it. And I do like the scrappy look that it gives you. This has very quickly become my most used piece of crochet knitting that I've ever used. I have it, it's got very cold here in the UK. I mean, in that way that for some people it doesn't even sound cold, but for us here in the UK, it's been very cold. It snowed a little bit and it's been kind of stormy. So I have spent many an evening just kind of sat with this wrapped around me, and I really, really love it. It's really, really warm. It's really, really cozy. And it's just nice. And it's kind of where it drapes over and then still have my hands that I can knit or crochet while I have it over me. I definitely will make another one of these at some point. I think I'm going to make my boyfriend's mum one for Christmas next year using, I'm not sure, I don't have any blanket clubs that I put into what, although saying that, there is a club that I've signed up to that I'm thinking of making another one of these with, that's coming with full skeins. But that would be for me. I don't think the colourways will be a bit of her. So I think what I might do is I might, at some point, probably later in the year, go on Wool Warehouse and maybe buy, I think their Yarnsmith Pebble Haze might be really, really nice on these. So I might pick out some colours that I think are her vibe, and then maybe make a slightly more intentional one, maybe like a main colour with stripes going through it, or maybe like a fade kind of thing. We'll see. I don't have to decide that now, but I really, really enjoyed making this. I did it with a 4mm crochet hook. The pattern's originally written for bulky weight yarn, I think, but it's one of those where it's kind of more instructions than a pattern, so you can adjust your hook and yarn accordingly, and then you just keep going until it's the size you want it to be. And I love it. I think it's really, really great. And that's finished object number 2. 2 finished objects in one episode. Who am I? And one of my year-long projects done as well, which is fun. The other year-long project from 2024 will not be mentioned in this video because I have not worked on it, and I kind of feel bad about that, but I just haven't got around to it, but I will, I promise. So that's finished objects. Shall we move on to whips? So I have 5 whips. Let's do the ones that are based on crafts you know I do, and then the last one I will do and I'll kind of talk about that. So let's do, I actually don't know what's in each of these bags, so yes, this is the one I wanted to talk about. So this is the Traveller Cowl by Andrea Lowry. I have spoken about this before, not very much because I hadn't worked on it very much before, but I put a little bit more into it and I'm really enjoying it again. I never stopped enjoying it, I just had, it was mainly the Litmus Cowl, to be honest, where I wanted to keep up with that. A lot of my projects just kind of fell to the wayside. But no, I don't have any Advent projects, so I can work on whatever I want. I mean, I could work on whatever I want during Advent as well, but I just didn't. Or I did, but the thing I wanted to do was the Litmus Cowl. So, the Traveller Cowl by Andrea Lowry is a knit on the bias, is that the front side? Yeah. Is knit on the bias, and it's, if you've seen my shift cowls that I've made before, if you've seen anyone else make them, it's one of those Andrea Lowry patterns that's kind of knit as a flat kind of bandana shape and then you seam it along the edges. So if you see that stitch marker, that's where I'd got to before, and I just finished section 1, which is the section that gives you the seamed edge basically. And now I'm increasing only on one side and I'm going down to the bit that will eventually be the point. So I've added in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 10 like bumps, because if you can see the texture there, I've added in 10 bumps, which I think is 5 repeats, but I'm not entirely sure. I can never quite work out how much I've knit when I finish a section because I don't know, I just kind of forget what I've already knitted. But I'm really loving how this is turning out. This yarn is from the Crafty Bird. It was part of their summer favourites collection last year, I think, and it is called the Family Madrigal, based on the film Encanto, and it's on their Cozy DK base, which is 100% superwash merino. So I got 3 skeins of this. I think this project will probably take 2 skeins, maybe a little bit more or a little bit less, which means I should have pretty much a full skein left. And I think I will then probably make a another hat with the remaining skein to have a bit of a matching combo. Whether I'd ever wear them together, I don't know, but I think that would be cute. So I'm kind of probably little under halfway through my first skein. And that's that really. It's knit on 4mm, actually let me make sure I'm not lying to you. 4mm needles. I don't think there's anything else to say. I'm really enjoying it. It's quite a mindless knit now that I've got into the pattern. There's some make one left pearls in it, which aren't my favourite thing to do, but now that I've kind of done them a few times, I'm kind of on board with it. And the second shift cowl that I did made it so I now understand make one left and make one right without having to look them up, which is making it go so much faster, because having to get to the end of a row and having to look up a tutorial on how to do a make one left or right every time, surprisingly, is a really slow way of doing it. But that is that. This is probably one of the things I'm focusing on at the moment because I'd like it to be finished. And this is in a Butternut Handmade bag by the wonderful Conchetta, and I really, really love it. All of my bags are from her. Actually, no, they're not. One of them that I'm using at the moment is not from her. I got one for Christmas. So I will show you that as well when we get onto it. And that's everything on whip number 1. Whip number 2 is a new cast on, but I did speak about this in a previous video. So I had some yarn that I knew I wanted to use, and this was one of the options for this yarn. So this is the Summer Stripes Shawl by, I'm going to need to look up who this is by because I don't have it off the top of my head, by Meiju KP. I should really look up what their actual name is, but they got on like Ravelry and everything, they go by Meiju K.P. Yeah, I should look up their full name. I mean, maybe they don't post their full name on the internet, maybe that is just what they go by. But this is the Summer Stripe Shawl, which is a crescent shawl. Oh God, where am I? I'm trying to work out which way round it goes. I think it goes that way. So it's a crescent shawl knit. I'm very tangled up. There's so much yarn here. That's knit tip to tip. So we started here, and then one side of it is predominantly one colour, and then the other side of it, once you get to it, is predominantly the other colour, which is what I wanted for this yarn. So these are the colours I'm using. So they're both by Pigment and Ply. They're part of their, it was their 2023 advent when they sold them as main skeins later in the year. And we have the green colour, which I really, really love. This green colour is Wildling Muse. And the variegated colour, which you can't see majorly in those eyelets, so I'll hold it up. That's their variegated colour. That's called Viada Romana. And this is on their, I went a bit bougie with it. It's their 80% superwash merino, 10% cashmere, 10% nylon base. DK, 212 meters per 100 212 meters per 100 grams. And I got 2 skeins of each, which is about how much you need for this pattern. And I'm really enjoying this. It's a new to me designer, which means, you know, when you kind of have to learn their language and kind of the way they're thinking about things. But I think I've got my head around it now. It's a well-written pattern. It's quite a simple pattern because this whole section, you're just doing the same thing. It's just obviously increasing, so it's getting bigger. And then the second section of it, I think, involves some short rows, which I'm not massively versed in. I've only done them a couple of times, or I did them a lot, but only on one project, which was the Go-Go Dynamo Shawl for last year's Cowl. So I'm excited to learn a bit more about short rows. I think it's a different kind of short row. But so far, it's not grown much, but this also didn't take too long. It's working out quite quickly. I've made one mistake, which is, you can see this little bump there. I think I just forgot to do an increase at one point, but I noticed it too late, and it's one of those things, again, you won't see it because it'll be wrapped around your neck where it's on the tip. If it was a bit further in, I'd probably rip back and fix it. But having said that, if you see any mistakes further in later and I haven't ripped back and fixed them, you can keep that to yourself. I'm not really much of a rip back and fix kind of person. I mean, I would if it was completely falling apart, but unless the mistake makes it look awful, I'm kind of okay with it because I did make it by hand. I'm not a machine. But that is the Summer Stripe Shawl. Really fun pattern. And I'm really excited for how this is going to turn out. Because I've been wanting, I got this yarn probably last, like May. And I've really wanted to use it since then. Now I finally am. And this is also in a butternut handmade bag, which is a theme that you'll see running through. I feel like I didn't talk. Oh, actually, the needles I'm using are 4.5mm needles. So it's a bit of a looser gauge, which is also making it come up. I mean, that's not that loose, but it's making it work up quite fast, which I like. And the needles I'm using for this and the needles I was using for the Traveller Cowl are both Leica interchangeables, which are my favourite needles. However, I am starting to use Chalgoos a little bit, and I think maybe I really like them. But I do really like the Leica needles. Talking of some Chalgoo needles, let's talk about the project, which I'm using Chalgoo needles on. This bag is really too big for this project because it's a hat, but I was using my smaller project bag for something else that isn't really a project, it's just a ball of yarn that I'll talk about later. Not today, like in the future, one day maybe. One of the things I said in my last video, well, 2 videos ago, but my last podcast, was that one of the skills I want to learn this year is cables. And I wanted to do that in a hat, that was the plan. So I went hunting for some patterns and I found, I might have already spoken about the pattern. I found the Cushy Comfort Hat by Stephen West. There is a bit of me that thinks this is a slightly more complicated cable than someone needs to do for their first one, but I'm hoping it will keep me interested. And I've also heard a lot of people say that cables are actually far more simple than people think they are. And I'm hoping that's the case and that it's not just like a load of people lying about how simple something is. I think sometimes people say that something's really simple and they're not lying, but they disregard the fact that they've maybe been doing it for 10 years. And like maybe that's why it's simple, maybe it's not because the technique itself is. But what I will probably do is I'll put up a picture of the finished project from Ravelry because you can't tell what it is on this. Because I'm currently still just on the starting ribbing, so it's 6 inches of ribbing, just 2x2. This is DK weight by Pigment and Ply. This is the colourway Nordmanania. And I think I had a revelation that that is referring to a Nordman Christmas tree. But I'm not 100% sure. But I think that's like what the Nordman in Nordmanania is. And this colourway it's stunning. Like it's such a wonderful solid. So I'm working on the ribbing. I think I'm about halfway through the ribbing. So I've still got a fair bit to go. And then the cables start. So I'm excited to get onto them. I'm excited to kind of get through the ribbing. My hope for next time I speak about this, or next time I make a video in a couple of weeks, my hope is that I've started on the cables and then I can either talk to you about how simple I find cables or how complicated they are. The way they're described in the pattern makes them seem different but relatively straightforward in terms of what you're physically having to do, but we'll see. I'm knitting these on 3.5, I'm doing the ribbing on 3.5mm Chalgoo 16-inch circulars, and then I'm doing the rest of it on 3.75, which is what the pattern calls for. I think there is a chance that this is going to be too small for my head, which is fine because my boyfriend has quite a small skull and it will go to him, but I'm not sure, it might stretch out. Ribbing's kind of quite deceptive, so I'll find out. But that's that. I mean, it's some ribbing. I've got a little stitch marker on here from, actually I don't know where this is from, so I can't tell you, but it kind of looks like a little like globe almost, which I like. I really enjoy getting to it every time I do a round. But that's the Cushy Comfort Hat. So not a load of, I mean it's a new cast on, so it's more than you've seen, but not loads of progress. I quite like, I've realised I kind of always want, I think, a hat project on the go, especially like a DK hat, because I just find 2x2 ribbing quite mindless. Like I just enjoy doing it. I think I might make another hipster hat at some point just to kind of have something on the go, really. But that is everything for that. So this is another butternut handmade bag. I could probably not even say, because I think everyone gets the gist by now. One more whip before we get on to the last project. This is kind of, I don't know the way I'm going to keep updating this project, because I think it's one of those projects that's going to be, I don't know why I'm being cryptic about it, it's a granny square blanket that I have spoken about a little bit before, but it's one of those projects that it's probably going to take me forever to finish, so like, sometimes I'll show you things on it, and then I might make no progress for like 6 months, and then it's kind of, I'm wondering, will you even remember or care? So, but I'm going to update you on it, and then we'll see. I mean, it won't be months, because I do know what I'm doing next with it, but I'll explain. So, the granny square blanket, I have spoken about this before. This isn't a pattern, I'm just making a traditional granny square blanket, where I make fingering weight 7 round granny square. I mean, I can show you the granny squares. Fingering weight 7 gram granny squares. My plan is to make 200 of these and then granny stitch them all together in a blanket at some point. I've made another 10. So since I last spoke to you, I've got all of the ones that I made before in here. I think there's 20 in here. I've made another 10. What I'm doing is I'm picking, this is my bag where I'm keeping all my minis that I want to go into the blanket. I'm picking 5 out at a time. I'm winding them up, and then I'm just gradually making them into granny squares, and then I'll weave in all the ends of those 5 as I go, and then I'll talk to you, and then I'll put them in the bag as we go through time. So I wanted to show you the ones that I'd made. So these that I'm showing you currently are from the Crafty Bird's Magic Autumn, Season of Magic, Seagulls, a Season of Magic, which I got at the Southern Wall Show last year. I think that one is also from those. These two are from Dina's Home of Crafts, which I also got as the Southern Wall Show. They're not part of a set, they're just, she had a stand of minis that I picked some out from. I really, really love these. I'm hoping she's at the Southern Wall Show again this year so I can get a few more. I just think the way she dyes these up is really, I think this is so pretty. I'd love a full skein of this to make something in. I might look them up online actually to see if that's a thing. And then I also got some from Hedgehog Fibres, which is an Irish-based dyer that I've really liked the look of for a while, but they're a little bit, they're like a kind of pricier dyer, but they did a bit of a sale on their sock minis, so I bought a few to add in from there. They're really, really fun, and they're quite bright as well. I think originally, I think if you look at these two piles, these are all kind of muted and these are quite bright. I might get to a point where when I make the final product, I might take some granny squares out if I don't think they work. But I think I want it to just be a kind of fun mix. And if there's some pops of bright colours, I might try and, if there's a good amount of bright, I might try and alternate so it feels kind of balanced throughout. But that's really a decision for future me. So what I'll do is I will put them in here. And then I think I've got 10 more that I've already got the minis for. And then my plan is to then get to a point where if I get a mini, I make it into a granny square and kind of do it straight away. So I don't want to end up getting to a point where I feel like I've already got the 200 minis, but I just need to make loads of granny squares because that will bore me eventually. And then what I'm doing is all of the leftovers, because they're only 7 rounds. I think they use just under 10 grams. All the leftovers I'm keeping in this bag for another project. I think probably also a blanket at some point. I'm thinking I might do a kind of mild moment of like a scrappy blanket, or like a granny stitch blanket but using them as stripes rather than as squares, or something else that future me decides to do. I'm not going to start another blanket project until I've finished. I mean, I might do, but like I'm probably not going to start another blanket project until I've finished the moss stitch fade that I'm doing, that I've not made any progress on, but I've spoken about in previous videos. Other than I'm getting a new nephew who's being born in April time, and my first nephew, I made a temperature blanket for his first year, and I gave it to him. I mean, I gave it to my sister, but I gave it to him as a present for his first birthday, and I want to do that again. So I suppose I will be starting another blanket, but maybe I'll try and finish that one by April. It's only January 10th, that feels quite doable. Maybe that's my goal actually. Maybe my goal is to finish that by the time my sister gives birth. Although this baby is growing very quickly, so maybe she won't make it to April. But you don't need to know about the growth cycle of my sister's unborn child. That is all of the knitting and crochet whips. So should we talk about a bonus craft that I've started for Christmas? Actually, let's talk about the bag it's in. So for Christmas, my mum got me this bag, which is by the Woolly Tangle. I love it so much. This is my favourite shade of yellow, in the way that I think some people might think it's orange, but for me this is definitely yellow. It's such a good bag in terms of it being quite thin, which really works for this project. So in here, I have my first ever cross stitch. So I've always kind of been interested in cross stitch. I mean, that's a lie. Like 10-year-old me wasn't interested in cross stitch. Since I started knitting and crocheting, I've kind of been into the idea of, my granny used to cross stitch a little bit, and I got some of her cross stitch thing after she passed away a few years ago. It just seemed really daunting, so I think then I gave it to my sister, and I'm not sure my sister's touched it either, to be honest. But I asked for Christmas a couple of kits by a company called Innocent Bones. I think it's a small business who do these really, really wonderful cross stitch kits. The one that I'm doing at the moment is, I've got two that are kind of tarot card themed. I looked up online and apparently there's a way, I'm not like into tarot, but in a way that like I do think it's fun. I think it's fun when people like kind of make predictions, and it's like then fun if they come true, isn't it? But I like visually, I really like tarot. I think it's a really pretty, like the design of the cards. And I looked up, there's a thing where I think based on when you were born, you like have two tarot cards that like represent you. And the two for me were the High Priestess, which I love for me, and Judgment, which I also love for me, to be honest. I try not to be too judgmental, but sometimes people do silly things. And I'm working on these and I really, really enjoy it. I don't think I'm very good at it, but in a way that like, I think it's also, it's one of those crafts that like it's fine to be bad at anything, but I think I can get away with not being good at it because it kind of seems to be coming out. So this is the progress I've made at the moment. I will say, this uses, I don't know any of the terminology, this uses, you get like your embroidery thread, you then have to split it, so you only have 3 plies of it, which was quite random to me. So it's using 3 plies of embroidery thread, which I think if you're a cross stitcher makes sense to you. Which makes me think it's probably like a bit small to be your first ever cross stitch project, because I find it a little bit fiddly at times. But I'm also really, really loving it. I'm really loving how it's come out. I'm currently working on this little green section that's running down here, so I'm really enjoying that. The back is wild. I've seen some people where like the back is almost as neat as the front. I keep doing this thing where I keep like catching the yarn, so then I end up with big loops of yarn on the back. I think it's secure though. You can see over here, and you can see there's a bit of that cut out. I ended up, while it was folded down, I ended up sewing through it, and I didn't want to unpick it, so I just cut around the bit of the Ada. but I'm having a really good time. I think this is for the best, I'm really enjoying the process of it, and I'm really excited to have this finished thing. But unlike knitting and crochet, I don't feel that urge to have more than one of these on the go at a time. Like if this one project took me all year, I'd be okay with that. I don't think I'll want to start a new one until I finish this. But it's very, very mindful, it's very, very peaceful, and I'm having a very, very good time. So I'll keep you updated on this. I don't think I've given any information that someone who talks about cross stitch a lot. I've also seen some people talk about a thing called needlepoint, and I don't know and to me it looks the same, but apparently it's not. But I think this does count as cross stitch. If you know about cross stitch and there's bits of information that I haven't given and you want those bits of information, feel free to give me those bits of information. I mean, you probably won't know because you're just looking at it on a video, but feel free to ask me and maybe I can find out. But that's a new craft for me, something new to learn in the year 2025. And I like it because it's very different in terms of how it fits in my brain to knitting and crochet. So it doesn't feel like it's competing. Sometimes I just want to sit down and do some cross stitch. And I find if I've only got 20 minutes to craft, I might do a little bit of crochet, but I probably won't pick up any knitting. But with this, I can look at the clock and be like, I want to go to bed in 20 minutes. Let's just cut a little bit of thread off and add some bits into my cross stitch, which I like because that's handy to have. But that's the last of my whips. So let's talk about some plans, and then let's talk about some new yarn that's come in. And don't shout at me about the new yarn. It's for a present. So, not that you can shout at me. You could write your message in all caps though, I suppose. I'm not going to get this out because it's 24 minis, but this is the Crafty Bird advent that I got this year. So if you've watched my advent video, you'll have seen me opening this. The theme of this advent was musicals, and I love it. It was great. I really love the Crafty Bird yarn. You've obviously seen me mention it with the Traveller cowl. They're currently working on a Wicked, they're currently showing the samples of a Wicked collection, which I might have to buy to make myself a hat to wear to Wicked Part 2 later in the year, potentially. Even though I did say I'm not buying any yarn. No, I didn't actually. I didn't say that. I said I want to use more yarn than I buy. So I can buy as much yarn as I want, I just need to use loads as well. So that's fine. But I really want to use this advent. My plan is by December this year to have used all of the advents from 2024. Not necessarily fully, because I might not use every gram. I might still have like with this one, I still consider this advent used because it's been in one project. And the one I want to start with is the Crafty Bird. And I was looking through patterns, and I think it's such a pretty advent that I was really struggling to pick one because there's so many things it would look great in. But then I stumbled across a pattern by a designer I've never heard of before, and I also have not written their name down, so I am going to look it up. I will put a picture up here. It's called the Tin Type Scarf. It's by, oh, I don't know what those two dots above an O mean. Walton? Walton. I don't think that's right, apologies. W-O-L-D-T-E-N, but the O has the two little dots above it, which I don't know what that is, but I've got the picture up there. I just think this is so pretty. And I think it's not sold as an advent pattern, I think it's more sold as like a fade. I think the example they uses two yarns, one that's like a colour changing. I might be making that up actually, I don't think that's right. But it's not sold as an advent pattern. But I really want to use it as an advent pattern. So I need to find a main colour. And I just think these little like splotches of, actually I don't know where I'm putting the picture, I'm going to put it up there. These little splotches of colour will just look so nice and will really show off the bits of yarn throughout the month and still be really wearable with like all those colours in it. I think it's going to be so pretty. It uses German short rose, which is also called, double stitch in the pattern. I think they're the same, which I've never done before, which I can learn, hopefully, fingers crossed. And I just think it looks so fun. I think it looks so kind of simple, so kind of minimal. I think I might hate knitting it, so maybe not, but I can see this being a pattern that I want to make lots of versions of. I think it would be a really good gift knit, to be honest, because you could easily pick kind of someone's favourite colours and then just use it in it. I also think it's going to use very little of the actual advent, because I don't know how long it ends up being, so it might be that I use each colour more than once, but I don't think it will use very much, because you're only doing a small little stockinette section in the middle of, it's mainly the main colour. I think it uses, it does say, it uses about 862 metres of the main colour and 292 metres of the secondary colour. And I have here like 1200 metres. So it's not even, it's barely using, oh, that's, I can't do the maths, it's barely using like a quarter, which I just think is a lot of fun. So I need to find a main colour. I think I'm going to message the Crafty Bird, because she's posted a couple of patterns that she's made. She's made a jumper using this advent, and I think something else. And I really like the main colour she's used with her advent, so I might see if that's one that she sells, or maybe like for a picture of it, if I could try and find that kind of colour, because I think that looks really nice. And then I think I'll cast this on. And it's garter stitch with obviously little stockinette bits in the middle, so it's mostly knitting within some purling, so I think it will go quite quickly. I just think it's so pretty. It's also, you can buy it as a collection. Oh no, you can't. Yeah, you can. There's two variants of it actually. There's a 01 and a 02. I think the 02 is just slightly smaller. So I think they'll make the 01 to kind of use as much of the minis as I can. But that is my plan for this. My plan for another advent. What is that noise? Oh, I think the people who clean the building are hoovering. I thought that was the wind. I thought I was going to die. This is the James Makes Yarn advent, which was Beanie Baby themed. Again, I'm not going to get out, even though this is only 5 skeins, but you can see the colours hazily through the plastic. This one, I'm saying this is what I'm going to make with it. I might change my mind. At the moment, I'm thinking I'm going to make a Vertices Unite with it. I saw a lot of people make these last year, and a lot of people have a lot of fun making them. Originally, I was thinking that this would be some kind of project where, like maybe the Vertices Unite is a Stephen West pattern. I was thinking of a kind of maybe one of his other shawls. I don't think there's quite enough contrast between all of the colours to necessarily do some of his shawls that are a bit more contrasty. So I think that's why the Vertices Unite works, because I think you can play with colour and be... The colours matter more based on the shapes they're in rather than like fading through in one project. So I think I'm going to do that to use up for that. And then that's 2 of my 5 advent. No, that would be 3 of my 5 advents used in a project. And I think if I can get to that point by like halfway through the year, I think I'm an absolute winner and like maybe the greatest person that's ever lived. So fingers crossed. That's that really. So those are my plans for those projects. Now that I've spoken about them, I don't know whether I'll have cast them on by the next time I film this, so they might kind of be drifting plans for a while, but I had the ideas in my head, so I thought I'd talk about it. Lastly, but by no means least, let's talk about some new yarn that I've bought. You will have seen earlier in the year, I mean you might not have, this might be your first video, if it is, hi. You might have seen though, if you've seen a previous video, that I bought some yarn from John Arben in my quest that's still ongoing to try some different bases and some different fibres. So I bought some yarn that was their Corridale base, which is called Yarnadelic. I loved it, it's a really fun base. I will definitely buy more of that yarn at some point to make other projects. There are 2 projects though that I want to make for my boyfriend, which is why it's okay that I bought this yarn, because it's a very selfless act for me. So I bought some of their Knit by Numbers yarn, which is 50% Blueface Leicester and 50% Falklands Merino. I bought this. I bought 3 full skeins and 2 mini skeins. Yes. Oh, now I'm wondering if I bought another. Yeah. And 2 mini skeins to make 2 different projects for my boyfriend. The first I bought in the 4-ply, so you can buy Knit by Numbers. If you don't know what Knit by Numbers is, actually, it's like the best idea any person who makes yarns ever had. They have, I think, 12, they have some main colours, right? Say black. One of the colours I bought is the black, which is number 1. Number 1 is 100% the colour you're buying. Number 2 is like 90% the colour you're buying. So the other 10% will be like white yarn. And then number 3 will be 20. And then like it starts again with a new colour and works its way around. So you can do amazing gradients, but also they just have so many colours within it. So it's really great for colour work. I have got these 2 colours. So I've got number 1 and number 43. So is that showing up? They're quite dark, not super contrasty, but my boyfriend's favourite colour is black, but he looks best in green. And I've always told him I'm never going to knit you anything in black because it's so dark, but I gave in. I bought these 2 colours to knit a Simon shawl by I do know who it's knitted by because I watch Ruth Loves to Knit and she talks about them all the time, but one second. I'll put a picture here. It's by Twinset and Pearl. Well, it's by Joanna, who is one of Twinset and Pearl. I think they're sisters? Friends? They know each other. And I put a picture up here. So it's a 2-colour, kind of herringbony shawl. It's kind of, I suppose it's called a shawl, isn't it? But I think it's one of those like thinner shawls where it's more of a, if you called it a scarf, you wouldn't be like the most wrong person in the world. And I'm going to knit it out of this for my boyfriend. I think this will be really nice. I think they'll go together really nice. They both tonally, I think, go together really nice. I think I'll hate myself a little bit at some point because they're both so dark. But I don't know if it's colour work or if it's slip stitches. I haven't bought the pattern yet. But I think it's slip stitches, which should make it a little bit easier. But I have my neck torch, so I should be able to power through. I love this thing. This is really the only reason I get any knitting done in the winter, because it just gets so dark. But that's the first yarn I bought for the Simon shawl. The second yarn I bought, let me look up, because I don't know who I do, because I watch her on YouTube, is, so I will put up a picture of the Maxine Hot Water Bottle by Laura Penrose. I'm going to knit the 3-colour version of this, but I do just want to check that by 3 colours it means 2 contrast colours. Yeah. So I'm going to knit the 3-colour version of this, and this is in the DK base. So this is using colourway 87, which is this kind of deep purple, purpley kind of, it's got some reddy, it's kind of more of a reddy purple, I'd say. It's one of those yarns that I think you get a lot from John Arbon, because where they're like, the way they make their colours is by blending 2 yarns of colour rather than yarns of colour, that's funny. They blend 2 different coloured yarns to make the 3rd colour. They don't dye them. They do obviously dye them, you get what I mean. So that's the main colour. And then the 2 contrasts are colourway 115, which is this wonderful pale I think this falls under the yellows within it. And these are 25 gram minis, and the pattern calls for 20 gram minis. And colourway 92, which is this wonderful teal. And I think they'll go really nicely together. I got the swatch cards, and I sat here with my boyfriend, getting him to pick out the colours. He's not, no one would ever describe him as the most decisive of people in the world, but it took a while. But eventually he made the decisions, and I think these will look really nice. I think the trouble is because he likes black and white things, he likes quite neutral things. It's then hard for him to pick colours, but we got there eventually. And I think these will be really, really fun projects to work on. I think I'm probably gonna... I don't know which I'll cast on first, to be honest. I'll see how I feel at any one point. But I'll let you know, because you'll see. And I'll tell you which one I cast on first. And I think that's everything for the first of these for 2025. Yeah, that's everything. So if you're still watching, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself. If you did, leaving a like would be great. Subscribing would be great if you enjoyed yourself so much that you want to keep watching these. But if not, that's fine too. And I will see you in a couple of weeks. So it's been 3 weeks since I last posted a podcast. I tend to post these every 2 weeks. So I should see you in a couple of weeks. And I will show you my progress on this, and I'll show you whether I did or did not buy any more yarn. Fingers crossed that I don't, but the Crafty Bird's Musicals pre-order goes on sale next week, so don't hold me to that. But like I said, thank you for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful start to 2025, and I will see you in a couple of weeks. Bye.